We are live. We are double
Woo!
live. I'm live. We are live with me. We're live with you. We are live.
Yes.
I'm going to try to do a Dr. Seuss here. We are live, and there's a big purple shoe. Shall we sit in that shoe? I do not know. So we shit. So, oh, I don't think we're going to shit in the shoe. That doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very sanitary. But maybe we'll grow in the shoe. I do not know.
Yeah, it's a nice purple shoe. There's no reason to shit in it. That's what I've learned. Um, it's funny with these live streams. The very first 15 seconds is what most people actually see. I know that because it shows me the statistics in the back. So I do try to talk really quick at first, whereas before I would just kind of stare at the screen, like kind of like when you see an uncle or like so looking at the screen like. I did that for a long time. Hey, Brandon, how you doing, man? I heard Brendan, sorry, Gearing just came up right away.
Awesome.
Between the, yeah, please, we're really encouraging comments on this one. It's something that means a lot to me. When we have some comments, we have some inspiration to bounce off of. Erin here. Do you mind me saying what I said on the Facebook post already?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Erin here is a psychic medium who I've been working with for literally a decade, hey? Like, I think it was 2017, or, God,
No, we were back
2013,
like
11.
yeah, I think so. Like 2010, 2011, 2012, like somewhere in
Yeah.
there. I think that you've also just dated both of us as well because we were adults at the time.
Uh-huh. Not anymore, though. Now we're children. It's weird.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, Erin, as a psychic medium, has been a rock for me over the years. So pretty much whenever I'm going to make a big life decision, I always like to get that extra 7 perspectives that you'll provide, which are incredibly helpful for me to move forward. And the one thing that I've always appreciated about the work that you do as well is that I feel like when we do a psychic reading, things in my real life all of a sudden change. And I mean, like energetically, let's say I'm having, and this has happened so many times over decades and or so. I've been in some sort of conflict with a friend, and bringing that conflict to our circle, whatever that is, when we're doing our readings. I find then that person contacts me 10 minutes later after our reading is done, or there's some sort of, or it pops off in my head, it pops off in my body. I'm like, oh fuck, like I can totally see where I'm creating this, and then all of a sudden, boom, like within a day, the thing has changed. So yeah, just something about the very practical, real world changes that happen after we've experienced our energetic work and reading work has just been incredibly powerful and profound for me. So thank you for that.
Beautiful. Oh, my pleasure. But I think that there's a lot that you're doing in our conversations as well that helps to bring that about, because usually when we're talking, we're looking at things from a different perspective. So the way that you're approaching things, your energy is shifting, which is then allowing for those shifts to happen in the real world. And I think that's really cool and amazing, because we can talk in the ethereal as much as we want, but if we're not actually doing it and grounding it in the physical, then there isn't change that happens. So I think that really it's important to honor and recognize just what you bring to our conversations together as well, because that's having a significant and profound shift. So
yeah, well, really cool. As you know, presencing in the body, bringing the magic into the body has always been a really important thing for me. So Brenton just asked, as a psychic, what work have you been involved in, as in work with police or other organizations? I don't think so. I've never done that.
No. My energy and focus is working with people, with regular people. I do work with people from all walks of life. I work with a lot of like doctors and CEOs and professionals. I work with people who are, stay-at-home parents where their focus is with kids. I work with people who are in the industry as well. I work with a lot of people, but I don't work with any specific organizations.
You work with floating dirty hippies that are trying to make sense of themselves. Oh, right. Sorry. Oh, that was about me.
Well, except that you're not dirty, because I know that you just had a really cold shower. So
I did.
with hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the clean ones. No.
Uh, yeah, I was saying to Aaron right before this, like I've only woken up 25 minutes ago, and the reason that I do these live streams quite early in Australian time is that it hits North America as well, and if I wait too long, I miss that window. So I like
Yeah.
to do all my work for Australia and North America at the same time. But part of that is that I woke up today just filthy, and I was like, "Holy fucking shit! I feel so disgusting, and I'm going to have to go have a shower." And so I found an actual what looked like a duck shower. It was like, this must be for ducks. And I quack 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 hobbled my way into the into the shower and got myself cold as. Brendan just said very sweetly, "You are not a dirty hippie. You're the realest person I know." Well, I really appreciate that, man. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. But yeah,
absolutely.
in terms of energy work, because that
Mhm,
is different from psychic work
mhm,
in some ways. Psychic work is
mhm.
when we see and we can see
Yep.
different options. Energy work is something that's often felt in the body, and the presence in the different areas of the body is something that really means a lot to me. You did just go,
Mhm.
hmm. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I mean, when we do psychic work, yes, I mean, seeing can be part of the way that we receive that, but we also receive messages in the body and emotion, hearing, and through thought as well. So, I think a fairly Hollywood common misconception is that clairvoyance is the only way to receive psychic message and information, and
Yeah.
there are so many different ways. But otherwise, I'm totally on board with you.
I've always had felt senses more than visions as well, but I have to say, just over the last little while, I've been getting more visions than before for whatever reason. Yeah, just and it's
Mhm.
nothing profound. Like when you hear the word vision, it's like God must have come down and been like, "And the people shall." And it's like, well, not quite like that. Like I mean, like literally, I'll be like, "Oh." Like I just started having like really strong feelings and visions of a friend, and then that friend just messages me. It's always doesn't have to be about anything profound as well. It could be, "Hey, I'm in the country and do you want to hang out?" It's
Yep.
often yeah, it's for me it's not always profound, but I like that. In fact, I have a really strong mission to help normalize psychic awareness,
Mhm.
as though it is just as common as going to get tea with somebody or whatever. Like I feel
Absolutely.
that the more normal things can become, and the more out of the shroud of mystery and into kind of like regular life, the more accessible it'll be to everybody as well. Because when me and my friends, as had a center in Halifax, we would
Mhm.
have psychic awareness and psychic moments with each other, and it just felt so casual. Casual psychic
Mhm.
awareness, I think, would be a cool thing.
That's a
Uh,
Yep.
Brendan's asking, "Do you believe in manifestation?" I, I personally have had incredible experiences with manifestation. I did also go through a very strong process, though, where at first it was superficial. Like I wanted to be hot and I wanted to get the ladies and I wanted to have things that made me feel cool about myself. And it
Yep.
worked. I swear to God, actually using manifestation for those exact things worked really well. But then I did go through a process of deepening in my mid 20s where I realized that you can use those same manifestation focuses and mindsets on internal growth and not
Mhm.
necessarily just getting cool stuff.
Yeah, I
So
was
that was like
I was
that's my process.
I was going to say, yeah, like you can do all of those things to manifest the more superficial stuff. And all I could think is when you were talking about manifesting like the ladies and being really hot, I'm like, yeah, and how many problems did that bring you, Josh? You
Yeah,
know?
that was the psychic. My psychic awareness actually kicked in where I did because I did went through a very strong body shift. I did look quite
Mhm.
different, and yeah, and it actually brought me a lot more problems than I thought. And what
Mhm.
the actual lesson that I went through was in focusing on that and having that was that what we think we want isn't necessarily what we actually need,
Yeah.
and that there is something about tuning into our soul and our life path, and then using
Mhm.
magic to facilitate that, that often will be more fruitful, and um, and that it is. Don't get me wrong. Again, we are human beings that need things. There is stuff to
Mhm.
be needed, and especially now that I'm in a family situation, there is stuff to be needed. I need things. So being able to focus in that way is incredibly important. But being able to hone inner values using the same principles that one would with manifestation principles, I do find to have had more long-lasting effects that might be actually helpful for
Yeah.
a person's path. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when I do manifestation work for myself, I always, set the intention for whatever it is that I'm wanting to create or to experience in my life. But I always end with this or something better. Because sometimes I'm not aware of what is possible. Like my awareness is like this, but the actual possibility is much, much larger. And so instead of pigeonholing myself into something that could be a lot greater, I always say this or something better.
Yeah, that's smart. That's super smart. Because again, let's say again, this is more of like a Zen teaching, but the idea is that every thought that we have is limited by its very nature. We are in this universe, and we have these thoughts, and these thoughts oftentimes feel very, very real as well because we're human, and we can get into that. But if we realize that it doesn't matter, the best, most profound thought is still quite limited if you actually were to take it on a universal scale and to see where that could go. That as an ender, when we're using our mind to do that kind of work, is an incredible end or something better, because it could just be that that our even the best we can come up with is still limited in some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we're finite beings, so finite.
Oh, I'm finite. When I stub my toe, I know I'm finite. Fuck's sakes.
What
Out
about
of curiosity, for people that are watching right now, I see that there's 13 people on. Could I ask you to drop a comment and just say who you are and where you're from? And are you from Erin's side of this aisle energetically? Are you from my side of this aisle? I'd be curious because you and I both do quite a lot of internet work. So for anybody, I might even make a banner. You talk for a second.
Absolutely, because we're broadcasting to my work Facebook page, Heavenly Messenger. We're broadcasting to your personal profile page, and we're also broadcasting to your YouTube page as well. And I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about Josh a little bit, because Josh introduced me in a really lovely way. And so as we decided, we met sometime between 2010 and 2012, maybe 2013, somewhere in there, while we were both still very young. Yeah, 2011. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we were like 5 at the time when we met. but I had experience with meditation actually way back in elementary school in the early 90s, and it was really new and revolutionary at the time, but and certainly not very mainstream at all. But I'd always struggled with meditation, and so even though I'd had practices throughout my teen years and in my early 20s, and of course when I was doing work with developing to do the work that I do now, meditation is a pretty significant part of that. But I have a fairly active brain. One of the ways that I receive messages is clear cognizance, which means thoughts and ideas just popping into my head, which did make it challenging to meditate and to slow down. And so a couple of weeks after we met, I had the privilege of joining Josh for a group session. And what Josh took us into completely revolutionized the way that I was able to connect with meditation. And it had a significant impact on not only my ability to quiet the mind to connect, but also being able to quiet my mind enough to receive the quality messages that I was wanting. And, so often in my work teaching and helping and supporting others in developing their own intuition and developing their psychic ability and recognizing, one of the things that will come up is people have a difficult time meditating. So I'm super grateful to have had that experience with Josh, and I'm incredibly excited that you are continuing to share that with others, because I think that that's an incredible gift to give oneself.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting situation. The style of meditation that I facilitate is actually for people who say the words, "I don't think I can meditate," or "I find it difficult to meditate," because a lot of times that is because we're trying to do it in fairly dogmatic and strict ways. In other words, that we're sitting in a very specific posture, and we're breathing in a very specific way, and we're using a very specific mantra. But I try very hard to bust all that shit completely down and have it so we go in using our own body as the anchor point. And the thing about our body is that it doesn't matter where we are, we've got it, you know? So that, like if we have tuned our physical body to be in line with vibrational and energetic experiences, then it's good, because it's like, again, you can't get away from it. You're always going to be in your body, unless you're meditating and getting out of your body and doing something fun like that. But in general, our if we're using our psychic senses to come in through the top of our crown, which is, it's right up here. You always see the monks shave their head. It's a soft spot on a baby's head. There's a very direct area at the very top of our head, and if we allow that to open and allow energetic sources to come in through that top of the head and down into the body, down through our body and through the roots of our feet and down into the ground, then we set ourselves up essentially to be connected. And the chakra system, we're finding some new words to say things, my wife and I, when we're doing our work. The word chakra is beautiful, but I wouldn't want, if someone's talking about their heart chakra, for example, I wouldn't want us to get confused and start to think of it like the color green, or think of it like the symbol that often represents it, but actually go into the presence in the heart. Because when we're in an area of intelligence, is something that we've been calling it, a field of intelligence. When we're in our heart, there are times where we can feel it's blocked, and that's because it hurts, and it actually feels. If you actually tune into it, you can feel a retraction of sorts. It's a feeling of closeness, or we can feel that feeling of openness. And when we're feeling too open, though, we might even give so much of ourselves away, that can become a problem. So being in touch with our own body and seeing the throat is the easiest example. If we're having it's a hard thing to say, something that's like difficult, and we're feeling a block in our throat, then it actually feels like, there's that sense that it's like, oh my fuck, I can't speak. But again, when we're relaxed, and maybe for me as a person with an overactive throat chakra, perhaps it's too open and I'm telling people things that I shouldn't be, but there's a middle in between. So if we study each area of our body in correlation with the chakras, there is a feeling that we can get when things are closed. There's like a feeling of shame in the stomach or a tightness in the legs. That's when our chakras are closed. Or we can feel when they're very, very open, and it's almost like we're giving ourselves to the world. That can be beautiful, but it can also get us into trouble. So being able to actually feel like a string on a guitar, being able to feel, is it too tight, is it too loose, and being able to go into our body to actually do that work, I think is a very practical experience of the chakra system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Should we take a moment to say hello to everybody who's joined us?
Yeah, oh my God, they've said hello to us. Look at this. This is
awesome.
Great.
I recognize Heidi and Amber and hi Tanya and Leslie. Mary. Yes, Leslie. And to Moana.
We have Americans, we have Nova Scotians, we have British Columbians. We are just full of wonderful people. That's awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for
wonderful to
commenting.
see all of you. Yeah. And how is it? And I know Carrie's in Cumberland, which is where you and I originally met at that show. So that's really cool way to bring things around. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, very cool.
Fabulous.
And again, if anyone has any questions that they're wondering about, and in relation to meditation or in relation to psychic awareness or anything like that, please do open the floor as well. We're really, I love bouncing with people. Like if you throw a question, that's you basically saying, here's my energy. Would you like to play? And then I have an option to tune into it and to play with it. So please don't be shy. In this particular forum, the more comments that people put on these things, the further the algorithm takes the broadcast as well. So please don't feel shy. There's a whole energetic component and there's a whole algorithmic component, and they definitely are working in unison. Actually, I would say that my first moments of psychic awareness actually came from when I was using MSN Messenger and ICQ back in the day. Now I'm dating myself incredibly by saying ICQ. I don't know if you guys.
Oh, I totally had ICQ. Absolutely. I absolutely did. But again, when I was like 5, so.
Well, that makes me about 10 years older than you. So, Yeah, but I remember having just such clear moments where I would think about somebody, but I'd not think. It's not just like just think. It's like that feel think that we can have when we're feel thinking somebody, and then they would message me on MSN Messenger or on ICQ, and I remember that being profound at the time. I thought, holy fucking shit! Like, there's something more to this reality. If I can
Yeah.
think about somebody, and then they'll send me a message like within 30 seconds. There must be something to this. And so that was a huge part of recognizing and understanding. I wouldn't have called it psychic anything. I wouldn't have called it anything. I wouldn't have had any idea at the time. I would have more been in an atheistic mindset just because that was what the culture was. But I
Hmm.
remember it feeling like actual magic of a tingling in my body of, oh my God, like,
Yeah, yeah, that
yeah.
awareness. Yeah. This experience for me was quite a bit later. And obviously I was already having psychic experiences because I was already doing this work professionally. But I remember talking with somebody online, like online dating. I think it was POF. And we got to talking and he told me that his wife had passed. They were actually separated at the time. And suddenly she was right there and she was coming through. And I remember
Mm.
spending about 4 hours on chat with this person that I had never met before. I had no intention of doing a reading for, and it was all of these messages that were coming through from his wife who had passed, and messages for their daughter. It was really intense, and it made me realize that I needed to have boundaries around dating
Hmm.
in terms of what I was willing to do because it was a lot and for me crossed
And that's
boundaries.
amazing for you to learn that, because again, I know that because you have such a valuable energetic field and are able to tap into people's guides so naturally that people would definitely want you. But I just also want to
Mhm.
say that's very kind of you. Like, imagine this person would not have expected that, and it would have been like an angel had come into their life
Oh,
to help with
beautiful.
that closure and that resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that's I think that's a very, very beautiful story. And the unexpected nature. I kind of wish we lived in a world where we didn't have to worry about the fucking financial and weird parts of all of this, and that we could be more spontaneous like that, because life
Absolutely.
would definitely be drawing those lovely experiences together on of itself. So, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like I also, in saying that, I personally have had to learn that same lesson, and it's really important to have time and spaces for such
Yeah.
things, and not just have one's light bulbs completely blown and all over the place energetically all the time, because it's not sustainable.
Absolutely, because there is literally so much need that we would just burn out completely. And I know that when I talk to people about boundaries and I tell them I specifically ask that I don't get messages at the grocery store for people,
Yes.
particularly with Island Medium or whatever her name is,
God.
and
The,
and
yeah.
yeah, and like especially with people who are sensationalizing going up to people and giving them messages from their loved ones. They're like, well, why wouldn't you? And it always comes back to, in their mindset, a place of greed on my part, but actually it is from
Wow.
a place of survival to be able to
I've
have my own personal life rather than literally being of service 24/7.
and I've
Yeah.
done psychic fairs and Reiki fairs and that sort of stuff, and felt like absolute
Mhm.
garbage by the end of it too. Like, if you're
Mhm.
opening your field and allowing, asking everyone physically and spiritually to come into your body, like there's
Yeah.
a lot to happen. As my friend Rhonda said, I agree. I would do Reiki for free. And the truth is, again,
Yeah.
if our culture was set up differently, if it was that,
Exactly.
and if it, and not only in that financial sense, but also if we learn to have good boundaries with one another. In other words, if when people found somebody, and I didn't do this when I first started getting this field at all. I definitely sucked on people because I didn't know what those
Mm.
boundaries were either. But
Mhm.
if we were telepathically aware, we would also be aware when someone was starting to become burnt out. We would then be like, "Oh, I can see you're becoming burnt out, so I'll give you space now." And like, "Hey, let's
Yeah.
connect again in a couple of weeks." So it's also
Mhm.
it's a cultural phenomenon to be so disconnected that when a person is
Mhm.
connected, the feeling is, fuck, we need to get to that person. I need to be connected to like that person, like, and so it's like there is, but what kind of world would it look like if we were generally, let's say, just generally more competent in our connection to ourselves, and generally casually connected to psychic awareness, and then we could develop new language on what boundaries are, not only when I say like boundaries physically, but also energetic boundaries. That might be quite beautiful, actually, a society where we're more tapped in that way. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, that big goal of culture of energetic sensitivity, and a culture where healing is and connection to source or God or whatever is common. That's definitely still feels like the big goal. Like that's the real aim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in that, consent becomes a conversation that we have more of as well, perhaps coming from a slightly different perspective, where I connect with a lot of people who are developing like their intuition and psychic abilities, and they're receiving messages and they're wanting to give and share. And so probably perhaps don't have the same types of boundaries around when it's appropriate to share messages, because I think that it's important that the person that you have message for be in a place that they are open and willing to receive. And I think that particularly early on in our journeys, there is so much excitement around receiving messages and what we're getting. And there's such a deep desire to help, to love, and to support, that we get caught up in our experience of it and are perhaps not aware of what the experience of the person who would potentially be receiving this this gift. Are they in an appropriate place where they can receive this, where they can process whatever message is coming through? Is it something that they are interested in exploring? Because I think that free will definitely plays a significant role and a significant part. So
that's consent as well, right? That's the consent that we all hear so much about. I remember a friend was saying that just before he went on stage at an ashram, so he was going to go on stage to give like a message or a sermon of sorts, a woman had called him to the side who was a Reiki master and just said, hey, and I'm talking about, they're saying, okay, now Steve, come up on the stage. He goes, hey, come here. Your mother and the wound that she put in your heart is really prevalent right now. And he was like, okay, that's very interesting information, but I need to go on stage now.
Right.
But imagine that same message in the evening after the talk was done, and maybe they're sitting around, and maybe the person says, hey, like, I've got kind of a funny thing coming through, but it might be a little bit heavy. Are you in a place right now where you could receive that? Just the difference in experience that creates, right?
Absolutely, because in that circumstance and situation, not only are you able to deliver that message, but potentially able to help support somebody in receiving it and what they're going to go through and what they're going to process as well. So yeah, it could have been really different. One of the things that I have been aware of, and I see how it has overlap in this conversation as well. I'm currently opening up to dating again, and have been doing a little bit of dating this last year, which has been exciting. Right. But I remember having this conversation with this person, and I was on the brink of ghosting him. And I'm like, no, this is wrong. I need to have this conversation. And as we're going through the conversation, I realized, yes, this is why I was going to go that route. And I remember saying to him, you need to be okay with the no. Like, I'm giving you a no. You need to be okay with that, and you need to move on. And the same, I think, is true when it comes to consent with sharing messages and information. If you can go into something and say, hey, I have a message for you. Are you open to receiving it? You need to be in a place where you can accept no as an answer. And I think that's part of the challenge that can be experienced too, when you've got something that feels so pressing, is being okay with hearing no.
Yeah, that's like the whole tagline. Who are you in the face of no? Because if we do throw a tantrum in the face of no, that's what babies do, right? That's what children do, right? So there is a level of emotional maturity. Because if you say no to a child, often, but why? But I wanna. And so it's important to remember that we all have an inner child as well. So it's not about saying some people are children, some people aren't. That's always going to be an aspect of who we are. The question is, can we bring that aspect in alignment with the rest of our body and be able to rationalize with it too, right? Quite a lot of comments have come in. I'm so sorry, everyone. I haven't really been paying attention.
Let's do it.
So
okay, go ahead.
So Amber says, Erin reignited my interest in psychic connection. I pretty much nailed down the synchronicity and watched the clock change for the past 5 years. What would be the next step in furthering this connection, as I'm stumped as to what and we've missed the rest of the comment.
Oh, the next steps are, there it is. Yeah. Well, I have some thoughts and feelings coming up, but did you have anything coming through that you want us to take a look at?
I would say in those scenarios, again, just try to make it fun. Like, try not to get too intense about it being like a big mission that you have to do, if you know what I mean. But just realize that, ask and say, like, hey, any messages that are coming through, and if they could be helpful to the people around me, I'm very open to that. Like, I just feel like openness to it is almost more important than anything else. So if we're open to it, and then we start to see it coming, it happens. Comes this way, it comes that way, and kind of happens of itself. So yeah.
Well, one of the things that I want to say too is, Amber, I hope you're okay with me sharing this because it's really, really fascinating. One of the experiences that Amber was having when we first spoke was that she was looking at the clock literally as the time was changing. And I've noticed since you talked about that, now it's happening to me too. So I don't know if I want to thank you or not for that experience.
Pulling the awareness,
yeah, absolutely. But one of the things that was happening in always seeing the time changing, like looking at it and literally being in the process of changing, is actually being out of sync with time. And so potentially living in a couple of different timelines simultaneously, which we do, but not being physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually present in a single one. So grounding for me always comes up as being important, and grounding into a timeline, while at the same time potentially having an openness to manifestation. Like, one of the manifestation techniques that's used in matrix energetics is flipping through the concurrent timelines. So there is a timeline in which Josh and I are probably speaking in person to you right now, as opposed to this way. And there's another timeline where we're not talking at all. There's probably many timelines where we have never met. Like, there are so many different timelines that are running concurrently, that if you're working towards manifestation, there's a timeline where you are already existing with that experience, and we can flip through to that, and we can grab part of that experience and bring it into this current experience. So I see that as being kind of powerful too.
Yeah, that's all. When it comes to manifestation, I've always been told it's better to tune into the reality in which you do have it. And the joke is to not be too excited, because you wouldn't be that excited if you already had something. So we have to be careful, because if we're like, oh, it's going to be great, I can't wait, it's going to look like this, it's going to look like that. It's like, that kind of actually energetically implies that you don't already have it, because if you already had it, it would be like, what does that really feel like in this moment? Actually, it'd probably be exciting at first, but probably likely casual at a certain point as well, Like, yeah. That's one of those weird little things when it comes to manifestation, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, no, it is. It's really funny. Awesome.
My mama's on here, just said hello, listening with interest. Hello, mama. I love you very much.
Hi, Virginia. It's great to see you. I saw that you had liked one of the posts that Josh had tagged me, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Josh's mom. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we have potentially a heavier thing, and I'm not necessarily practicing this type of tuning in right now, but Amanda Dawn McKillen said my son's birthday was, I think this meant a few days ago. Any messages from him? Yeah.
So, Amanda, I'm so glad that you asked, and I recognize Amanda. Oh yeah, she said that she's from my side. That's really more of a mediumship question, and mediumship isn't my forte. Often I do a show with my good friend, Bobby Roundtree, and she is a born medium. She's fabulous. So I would actually suggest connecting with her. I think that she'll be doing the show live on her own next week, and she usually does readings at that time. But all that said, yeah, what I'm getting is really general. I'm seeing holding balloons, which for me is an indication that there is birthday, that there's some form of celebration. So there is an acknowledgement and recognition that this is something that you are aware of him and conscious of him and reaching out. And he's showing me that he is with you. I'm feeling cake. And so I don't know if this is encouragement to like have cake as part of his celebration, or to make sure that you're doing something that both of you would have loved. He's showing me going out to, it feels like a special place. What I'm seeing is out by the water, but the more important part of the message is that it is a place that is special, that's calming, and grounding. And he shows me that he talks to you there, that he sits with you. So to take time when you go to this special place to sit and to listen, because he's there. And again, I've got the water imagery that's coming up, and he keeps showing me like throwing rocks or skipping rocks, that this is something that he would have enjoyed doing with you, and that he really wants you to know that he's around. He's taking your hand and he's leading you towards something. And so I don't know if you're in a place where you're experiencing a lot of grief. I mean, birthdays are really hard times. Times of celebration are always hard when our loved ones aren't there. But this feels like it's more and deeper than just being around his birthday. And he's showing me that he's wanting you to go and to do things, to live, and that he's living vicariously through you and with you. So.
Very, very beautiful, Erin and Amanda. I'm also sorry for your loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you were here with us today, Amanda, and really encourage you to come and connect with Bobby next week as well. I know that she'll definitely have even more messages for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And just for sometimes I like to go a little bit meta.
Yeah.
What do you see on the world stage right now? Because there's lots of transformation and lots of changes, and there's darkness lurking around. There's light available to all. There's all kinds of crazy stuff happening right now. Is there any way that you felt like giving a bit of a synopsis of the world stage?
You know, that's a really big one, and a really tricky one, and so when things feel really big and overwhelming like that, I tend to focus more on what I'm able to do. And so I focus on making sure that I'm okay, that I'm grounded, that I'm connecting with the people around me and helping and supporting them in staying grounded too. Because when there's big stuff going on, we all feel it and experience it in a variety of different ways. You know, my focus tends not to be so much on big world picture. I want to focus on us as individuals and the contribution that we're making to the bigger picture of things. And so, yeah, I focus on personal practices, on holding space and energy, and focusing on the people that are close to me. And that's kind of
what is the collective, if not the sum total of each of these individuals, correct? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. What about you, Josh? Same question. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, well, I'm actually in a moment of conflict, actually, just because one part of me has always seen when I was in my early 20s, I had an incredible Kundalini awakening that included a lot of visions of the future. And it was showing me that in my 43, which would be 5 years from now, that things have really taken a turnaround and are in a good way and on a good path. And most of the time I've held that vision through thick and thin, through really painful, weird things, and I've always felt very confident in that. And then just the last few years, I've actually wavered a little bit, and I've really been like, oh fuck, like what if we're actually completely fucked? And yeah, just I'm holding both of those at the same time. One part of me is, again, humans are innovative. We always overcome And I really do feel that, like I really on the deepest level feel that that's what we do. And each time in history, it's looked like it's all been over. That's been the beginning of something new. So
Yeah.
that is the case. And then sometimes I'm like, maybe we're going to experience that cataclysm where the whole earth just shakes and we're all fucked, you know, like it's like, but that in a weird way feels liberating too. And if that is the case, if there is, let's say in 20 years, some sort of doomsday scenario happens, then really what we need to do right now is live to our best, you know, like not to become in despair, but to love the people around us and to go through healing processes of self-love and to heal the trauma in our bodies, because why wouldn't we do that, you know? So
Yeah.
even if there is some sort of negative reality lurking, that as you said, is focusing on the individual, focusing on oneself, focusing on our families, focusing on the love that we can share to our children and our parents, and yeah, it would make the most sense. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
don't really know. I
Well,
don't really
and
know, and that's who does.
right. One of the things that you touched on, I really love, and you talked about healing and doing healing. You know, even if we've got a negative outcome that's coming, if we're in a better place of healing, then we're better prepared to deal with it. If it's something that's really positive and amazing that's coming, if we're healed, we're in a better position to experience it and to participate in it. There is never a wrong time to do healing.
Yeah, totally.
There's
Totally.
never a wrong
And
time to take care of yourself.
yeah, and when we're talking about healing as well, I think it's really important to keep in context that we're coming from a very dark history, like a very dark past. The pain that is in our body is often because of the abuse of power and the abuse of people and the systems of slavery that essentially dominated this entire world until just recently, like 80 years
And
ago. And
and
it
it could
still is
be argued
happening,
that
but
it's still happening in different ways. Yeah,
totally.
absolutely.
Totally, totally. But I think it's just really important just to give that empathy and understanding to ourselves too, when we are suffering with post-traumatic stress in different ways, and when we are find ourselves in painful places in our genetic history that come up in our bodies as well. It's like, yeah, it was fucked for a very long time, and not only that, just the pending doom that a tiger might come and just wipe out half your village is a real thing that was just happening. And the fact that
Absolutely.
we're in a safe enough place that we can do healing, the fact that we have the space to go into healing, and the fact that we have the space to even have self inquiry and not just be in survival mode, is actually it's big news. And so if this is a brief window in which we have this and it's going to get harder later, or if this is the start of something just generally new for an extended period, which is what the hope is. Yeah, going in and recognizing and having compassion for ourselves, because whatever darkness we carry is secondhand. It's not something that we sat and came up with ourselves. We're not like, oh, I'm going to sit here and feel some trauma. It's like this goes back
Yeah.
deeply into the roots of our bodies and the roots of our psyches and the roots of our soul's pathologies. So
And
just keeping that in mind. Yeah.
absolutely. And even our physiological DNA. I had an experience years ago with a man who was a lot older than I was, and his dad had fought in a war. And in this war, a huge chunk of his calf had been blown off of his body, and he had this very dark, distinctive birthmark on his calf. This particular man I was talking to was born several years later, and he was born with a birthmark in the same shape, in the same color, and in the same place on his calf. That the trauma that his father had experienced was so physically significant that it literally changed his DNA, and he then passed this on to his son. We know that trauma has a physical impact on our bodies in the same way that physical injury does as well. And so a lot of the trauma that we're dealing with can also have been passed down physiologically through our parents and our ancestors before us. So yeah, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. And if we're able to be compassionate, then yeah, we're able to do that work.
Definitely. And the indigenous teaching is that every moment of healing that we do releases 7 generations behind us and sets up a future for 7 generations ahead of us too.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
beautiful.
about 7, could be 8.5, but let's just taking that into account. It just means that the work
Yeah.
that we do in this moment is healing for our families and our future families too. Even if it's not biological as well, the collective morphogenic field is always changing as we change.
Yeah.
Is it very interesting? I would even say that there was a period of time that I really felt in the air, and it could just be my own personal life, but that things were opening up energetically. It felt like
Mhm.
things were more and more open. And then during that coronavirus, it felt like things got pretty like externally shut down. Externally, internally, we were free. It seems like people were even more free, and on some levels internally. But there's yeah, I do the ebb and flow, I guess you could say, of this opening that happens and then that closing that happens. Probably even getting comfortable with that is a good idea, because it's likely going to keep on happening in some sense too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's interesting that you talk about COVID. And for me, at the very beginning of COVID, here in Canada, in BC in particular, things started shutting down the middle of March. So we're actually coming up on 3 years since that originally
mm,
happened. And one of the things that I really noticed was people's psychic abilities were just growing exponentially. And as a result, like what I was receiving was really big and huge too. And people were opening up. And for some people, it was really fascinating and interesting, and they went with it, which is amazing. But for other people, it really kind of put in their faces the things that they hadn't been working on and the things that were uncomfortable. And so we saw a lot of withdrawal from that. So, we have recently had a really significant opportunity to open, to grow, and to expand into that. Everybody had different experiences during that time, from like a physical point of view, in terms of, like the circumstances that they were in. Were you alone? Were you stuck with people that you couldn't stand? were you with people who were positive and loving and supportive? And I think all of those things really had an impact as well. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of fear and discomfort that came up, that I believe was internal, as well as challenge that we may have experienced externally too.
mhm.
Mhm.
Just a big warning in the comments here. We've got someone called
Yeah,
Rebulk.
they're
We have a scammer. We've got a scammer
they're
in the house.
they're on they're coming from me. Josh, you can actually go in and you can delete and ban them. Because I'm a guest, I can't do it. But if you click on the
Yeah,
three dots next to it,
I
we
just
can
blocked them. Yeah.
get rid of this person.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
thank you, Leslie Hardy, for bringing that up, because I actually didn't understand what was going on there. So, anyways, that person is blocked from my end now. Hopefully, it'll stay that
They'll,
way. Fuck.
and it blocks them on mine too. So yeah, I always get the scammers
There,
because I do the readings online. So
here's that's one unique thing. I've got a lot of friends that have had their accounts taken over by people doing that as well. So on
mhm.
Instagram in particular, they'll take over the account, and then I got a message from someone who I know very well, and I spent New
Yeah,
Year's with, and they were like, "Hey, would you like to have a reading?" And I thought, well, maybe, but that seems really strange, because I was just hanging out with this person like a week ago. Like, why would they bring it up in that way? Like, you think they say, "Hey,
right.
Josh, that was really cool, the experience that we just had. I just maybe thought maybe you'd like to have a reading or something," but it didn't feel
Yeah,
like that. It felt very cold, very cold. And so I messaged that
yeah,
person on Facebook, and I was like, "Is this real?" And she was like, "Absolutely not." And I was like, I caught that. Fuck.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that, but scammers are also increasing. If when I had one of those ones that it says, "Hey, it's your mom, can you give me money," or something like that, on a text. And I posted that I can't remember what it was, but I posted it on Facebook. And then all of these other scammers came into that post saying, "Hey, I can help you with your scammers problem." And so what I realized was
yes,
they must be writing the word scam or theft
yeah,
of
and
car. I
doing
saw
the
another
search.
one that was doing it, and then coming up on the search and then going on people's posts. And I was like, fuck, it's getting a little bit intricate here, isn't it? Jesus
Yeah, it
Christ.
really is. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And I guess
they are always watching.
more than ever, the feeling is, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Like, be careful with anything on the internet. If someone's offering you money, someone's offering you things and all you have to do is give them your credit card. Don't do it.
I mean, my people know if they've been hanging around for long enough, I do not do any sort of messaging through Facebook. In fact, I've shut down Messenger for my Facebook page, and if I could do it for my personal profile, I would too. But yeah, I do get people saying, did you message me offering to give me a reading if? And I'm like, no. No, I don't do that. That's not how I operate. So
So everyone just be on guard when it comes to that. But your presence is so your vibration, Erin, is so original. You know, I always know it's you when we're talking because I can feel you in behind it. If you feel someone speaking in a flat way or using English that's not necessarily well developed, it makes you wonder where where that might be coming from.
Right.
Yeah, it's a funny. Well, I had a friend actually recently get scammed. It was. I don't even want to describe the actual circumstances because it was a sexual website in nature. But I got scammed by saying the person was like, "I'm going to start giving you $4,000 worth of Bitcoin every month. All you have to do is put the first 200 in. If you put the first 200 in, then and I think she fell for it 3 times as well with the same guy, and just like after the 3rd time, went, oh my god, I've just given this person 3 loads of money. This was probably a scam, and it was. So just everyone remember that this is
be aware.
It's just happening.
Yeah.
That are
be aware.
I often have scammers lately in posts that are older. So they're even coming into our old. It's a lot. Be careful
well,
with that.
and I've started shutting down the comments on like my live streams like this, because after we go off the air, then the scammers will come on, because like with this one that we just had, you blocked them right away, so that was done. But half hour, 45 minutes, an hour from now, I'm not necessarily watching the stream, and they get in and they just blast everybody on there. And then so when I started doing that, then they started clicking on people's names, and if that person had an open profile, then they would message them on their things, and it's just like it can I'm actually looking for a new way and add a new way of connecting with people where we completely remove the scammers altogether. I'm excited about that.
I do know that Facebook is putting through experimental censorship things, but that in itself is a little bit weird because it'll take anything negative at all that comes through, it will block too. But I enjoy constructive criticism or two on my own work, so I don't want to necessarily do that. But I think that it's trying to stop scammers now. But anyways, it's a very strange, very strange. And let me know after this is done how I can disable comments for the thread, because I don't want that to happen.
I will let you know. Absolutely.
To my peeps.
Exactly. That's where I come from it too. I want to make sure all of my people are safe. So
we are coming on 6.5 minutes left, wrapping up here at the end. Erin, I know that most of the people here are from you, so I just want to thank Erin's exactly. Team Erin is winning by a landslide. But thank you very much for my friends
hiding in the bushes.
for my friends that have come too. I appreciate that. But if anybody would like to get in touch with you, Erin, and work with you for energetic healing or psychic reading, what would be the process for that?
Well, there are a couple of things you can do at 3:30 this afternoon. So about an hour from now, I'll actually be going live on my Facebook page and YouTube and a couple of other places. And I'm going to be doing my Connection with Intention show. So there I take questions from people and I do live readings. Do it for about an hour and a half. And it's a little intermittent right now, but today is one of the days that it's happening. Alternatively, you can hop over to my website, bookingwitherin.com. And I have all of my availability there. And I do try to keep times open so that I can connect with people all around the world, because I'm really fortunate and grateful that I have amazing clients who I connect with all over the place. So bookingwitherin.com is a great way to connect with me. Awesome.
Beautiful. And I've got it up on the screen here.
Thank you. And then for all of my community that have joined us today, thank you guys. You're awesome and amazing. I'm so excited to see you. How can people get in touch with you, Josh?
Yeah, Facebook is still the way. I'm also going to put a post right now. Can I add comments?
Yeah, you can. In fact, any comment that you add in the comment section is going to go to all of the places that we're currently broadcasting. So that's perfect.
That's super cool. Again, this is my first time doing a dual, because I've done dual casting, but never dual casting with the dual cast. So I just put it in comments, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so there's a course upcoming here, Transformational Communication. And what I'm working with is, okay, imagine we're in a relationship, even with a best friend, and there's an undercurrent of something that's been bothering us, but we find it really, really hard to bring it up. And we've gone now decades as friends, and we're just not able to get into the nitty gritty, the harder communications. I've created this thing called transformational communication, which is primarily focused on being able to casually own our shadows, meaning that we're not going into big shame cycles and being like, oh my God, I'm this and that, but actually just being like, hey, I've got issues. I've got a blocked heart here that comes up, and it tends to come up specifically as I get closer to people. That's just one example. But being able to casually speak that into reality, and also being able to say something like that feels like, again, it would be so hard to say if we've been in a cycle with somebody for a long time. Being able to say that directly also then creates a space where we've owned whatever is happening, and then in behind that space is often something new. So this is this transformational communication theory. So if you guys wanted to come and check it out, there's a Facebook event now in the comments. So check that out. Yeah. But yeah, this idea of transformational communication is that if we said these things that often people don't say about themselves and about others, but in a casual, loving way, that things move and change very, very quickly. And I have a lot of practice with that in my life, and I feel very, very lucky to be working with such things.
Beautiful. That's awesome. I love the word casual that you've used with this, because often when people think about doing like deep, significant work, they think about going right down into the nitty gritty. And as you say, like the shame cycles that come with that, and potentially like all of the trauma that is brought up around that. And in a lot of cases, we're able to bypass those really damaging emotions and get to the healing without having to wade through all of the crap.
That's what I'm looking towards, exactly. And we don't want to further condition ourselves either. It's really easy to start further conditioning ourselves when we start to dig things up and out. It's easy to attach to those things too. So having presencing practices and being able to allow beautiful things but painful things to come up, and understand that this too shall pass. Really getting into the truth and the understanding that we can bring something up that has a lot of energy behind it. But if we can do it with presence, and we can do it with a lightness in our being, that those things will pass and transform. That's we are here to be transforming in this time, as that very transformation is then again what changes the holographic field that we're all connected to. So just keeping in mind that our individual work is work for the world as well.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, and Chantel as well is saying that she does a weekly card. Oh, and that she's blocking people. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so add Chantel if you want to check out her thing too. So here we are, wrapping it up then. I love you so much, Erin. Thank you so much for coming on with me. And I love our origin story of me randomly seeing you at a fair doing Reiki and being like, hey, I do Reiki. And then us finding that our deeper gifts are the psychic work and the meditation work. And then just, over the years, I will talk to you within a couple of months, I'm sure.
I look forward to it. And I'm super excited about the program that you're offering. I hope that people who have joined us today will go on and check it out as well, because I know from previous experience that what you're doing is really awesome, amazing, and transformative. So thanks, Josh.
Thank you so much. Okay, lots of love.
Lots of love. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much to everybody. It's been really lovely. We'll talk soon.